This book's called The White House. In America they have a house called the White House. I don't think this is the same one. So let's read it together. Get your book and open it up. You ready? You want this page. Okay. It was the biggest house in town. It was the brightest house in town. And it was the whitest house in town. There was a large courtyard and garden. Inside were several bedrooms and a large family room. A set of stairs on the outside led to the roof. It was the biggest house in town and it was called White House. Next page. Henry White lived at the White House with his wife, Frida. Everything in the house was white. A white dining table with white chairs, the walls were painted white, the rug on the floor were white. "Oh, I do like my White House," said Frida. Then they heard knocking on the white front door. It was the mayor. Next page. Got it? "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. White. I have some wonderful news. Jesus is coming. We expect a large crowd and will need the biggest house. Can we use the White House?" The Whites were delighted. "Henry," said Frida, "we will need the place to look really special. I think we need to paint the walls and the ceilings." "Certainly need painting." "What colour?" he asked. "White." "It has to be white," replied Frida. Next page. There were 4 friends who lived just outside the town. Their names were Abe, Ben, Caleb and Dan. "Have you heard the news?" asked Abe. "What news?" wondered Ben. "Jesus is coming to our town," answered Caleb. "If we take Phil there, could be a miracle," declared Dan. A miracle. Next page. Phil was their friend. He had been very sick for a long time. He was unable to move his arms or legs and spent every day lying on his mat. "How will we get him there?" asked Abe. "We will have to carry him," suggested Ben. "We can take him on his bed," said Caleb. "I'm excited," shouted Dan. "There's going to be a miracle." "Where do you think Jesus will be?" asked Abe. "At the White House," replied Ben. "I know where that is," said Caleb. "Let's go. We want to be there early," added Dan. Next page. The 4 friends went to see Phil. "Jesus is coming to our town," announced Abe. "We thought you would like to come," said Ben. "But I can't move. How can I get there?" asked Phil. "We'll carry you," offered Caleb. "Let's each grab a corner of the mat. Everyone, lift together. 1, 2, 3, 4, called Dan. "Have you done this before?" Phil sounded nervous. "No, but we will soon learn," said Ben. Next page. The road was very uneven. "Ow!" shouted Phil as they bumped him yet again. "This road is very busy," said Abe. "Everyone is going the same way," added Ben. "Do you think they are going where we're going?" asked Caleb. "I think they are," answered Dan. When they arrived, the 4 friends were amazed. Everyone was there. The White House was full. The courtyard was crowded. "What are you going to do?" asked Abe. "I'm sure they will let us in," said Ben. Next page. But there was no way in. "We were here first. Go to the back of the line. Wait your turn," shouted the crowd. "I know," said Caleb. "There's the roof." The 4 friends carried Phil up the stairs to the roof of the White House. It was a difficult climb as they bumped Phil up the stairs. "What now?" asked Dan. "Let's remove some tiles and see what's happened inside," replied Caleb. "But it wasn't easy. Lift the tiles and dig through the plaster." "I wonder what Mr. White will say about his roof," asked Dan. "I wonder what Jesus will say about us interrupting his meeting," replied Ben. The 4 friends looked through the hole they had made. The room was filled with people. There was Jesus in the centre of the room. On the front row sat the mayor with the very important people from Jerusalem. Mrs. White whispered to her husband, "Look what they're doing to my ceiling. It has only just been painted." No one looked very happy except Jesus, who smiled at the 4 friends. Next page. "Tie some rope to the corners of the mat," said Abe. "Lower him gently," added Ben. "Have you done this before?" asked Phil. "No, but we will soon learn," replied Caleb. The 4 friends lowered Phil on his mat right in front of Jesus. When Jesus saw Phil, he said to him, "Friend, your sins are forgiven." They were the most wonderful words Phil had ever heard. Next. The important people from Jerusalem were annoyed. They thought, who does this Jesus think he is? Only God can forgive sins, but Jesus knew what they were thinking. Which is easier to say, he asked, your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk? I want you to know that I am Jesus, the Messiah. He turned to Phil and said, get up, grab your mat, now go home. Wow. Next page. Immediately, Phil felt strength flow in his body. He could feel his toes and moved his arms and his legs. Phil jumped to his feet. He was healed. He rolled up his mat, rushed through the crowd and ran all the way home. Everyone in the crowd was amazed. Mrs. White was staring up at the hole in the ceiling and the 4 friends who were repairing the roof. Henry, said Frida, we will need to paint the ceiling. What colour? He asked. White? It doesn't matter what colour, she declared. We are going to change the name of this house. It's no longer the White House. Jesus came and healed a man. This is now the Miracle House. Yay, the Miracle House. And that book was written by Jeremy Griffiths. I hope you enjoyed it. Love you heaps. Bye.